Stu Journalism and the New Brunswick Beacon present The Basement Files.
Welcome to this extra edition of The Basement Files. My name is Macedonia Kutsumbeli. In our edition today, we will explore issues that affect the local community, from economic growth and immigration to sports and food banks. Active living keeps the body healthy, we all know that, and many people in New Brunswick have put sports and recreation in their everyday lives. But what happens if there aren't enough facilities to meet the needs of the public? Justin Marshall has more.
Physical activity is important for all ages, but for kids, it's more important because their body is just starting to develop. The Public Health Agency of Canada says youth between the ages of 5 to 17 are encouraged to exercise for 1 hour a day. Adults and seniors are only expected to stay active for at least 2.5 hours a week. One of the most popular physical activities in New Brunswick is hockey. Hockey New Brunswick has over 17,000 players, coaches, and bench staff involved in the sport. But many stakeholders involved with hockey in Fredericton say the city doesn't have enough ice surfaces to accommodate winter sports. However, Nick Jansen, the technical coordinator for Hockey New Brunswick, says there's more than enough.
From our standpoint, the infrastructure's there. We have obviously the new rink going up in the fall, Willie O'Ree, Aiken Centers, so from our standpoint, there's enough ice to go around in Fredericton.
With only 6 ice surfaces in the city, people are scrambling for the prime ice time between the hours of 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Everyone wants primetime ice. Everyone wants to play at 7 or 8 o'clock, and it's just not feasible. I mean, we can't build rinks and have every group playing from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock and then it be empty the rest of the days.
But with children and parents going to school and working 9 to 5, those are the only times many people can go. Another issue with winter sports surfaces is the Fredericton Curling Club is the only accessible curling rink in the city. Capitol Exhibit Center is the bigger and warmer rink of the two, but people with mobility disabilities are not able to get on the ice. Michael Fitzgerald says a lot of places are not accessible in Fredericton, but what he's more worried about is the media doesn't give very much coverage to Paralympic sport.
When the Paralympics are on, you certainly don't get the coverage that you do for the regular Olympics. And even though Canada wins more medals at the Paralympics than they do at the Olympics. Now, whether it's the media not going out or to cover stories or not, I don't know the reasons behind all that.
Fitzgerald won the bronze medal last year at the wheelchair curling Canadian Nationals. Team Nova Scotia, who he skipped for, went 9-1 in the round-robin play. Fitzgerald hopes that he will be able to create a New Brunswick team by next year to go to Nationals, but they don't have a female to play for them yet.
9 provinces represented at the Nationals at the moment. Just PEI and New Brunswick don't have a team yet, but we're working on it.
The Canadian Wheelchair Curling Championship says each team must have at least 1 female.
80,000 people in New Brunswick live with a mobility disability. Ability New Brunswick is a non-for-profit organization that helps these people with everything from employment to active living and recreation.
Ability New Brunswick has been chosen to oversee a new program called Parasport and Recreation New Brunswick. This program helps people with mobility disabilities get involved in sports and recreation such as wheelchair basketball.
New Brunswick is one of the last provinces to have a formal parasport and recreation program or initiative in place, so this is a really good start. And what we get to do is we get to learn from best practices in other provinces, what's worked well and what hasn't. We're really trying to create more opportunities for people with physical disabilities to engage in programs.
Ability NB also helps people with mobility disabilities meet their needs so they can play the sport they love.
Our organization's really focused on solutions. We had a high school build us a bunch of bowling assist ramps that, individuals can use these ramps when bowling, and they're getting strikes, and golfing way better bowling way better than I can. So there's lots of creative solutions, and it doesn't mean that you have to have specific programs. It can be some bowling ramps at a bowling alley that can make them really inclusive programs.
Mobility New Brunswick says even though people do have a mobility disability, it's important for them to remain active.
I feel better. My self-esteem's better. You know, my spirits are better. I feel healthier. It's so important when you have a disability that people with mobility disabilities, it can be easy to be inactive.
The University of New Brunswick provides a lot of active living events for their students here at the Richard J. Curry Center Gym. They provide things like a spin room, an indoor track, and even an intramural program that has 2,000 students participate yearly. Tom White, the intramural coordinator at UNB, says there are all kinds of benefits to the intramural programs they offer for their students.
Obviously, you want people to stay active. Like I said, it's a good way to kind of stress release from studying. It's a good way to meet people, bond with the houses, your faculties, and it's just fun. Yeah, like you said, not everybody is a varsity athlete.
Alex Wiedinghoff, a fourth-year St. Thomas student training to become a personal trainer, says it's important to always stay hydrated whenever you're doing something active.
Your body is like around 75% made of water anyway, and if you're exercising and your body's hot, the water's gonna be disappearing, and so you need to replenish, and you just need it for energy. It's a good thing to do. You don't want to dehydrate and that kind of thing.
Wiedinghoff also says that it's important to stay active because our bodies are meant to move, push, and pull.
People don't actually use their body for those things. That's what causes obesity and heart disease risk. And so if someone, say they have a desk job and they don't do anything that will require them to move or do any type of exercise, it's really important that they find a sport.
With the hustle and bustle of society nowadays, many people find it hard to find time to be active. Wiedinghoff says it's all about priorities.
Probably prioritize and make time to exercise, and even if it means at their lunch hour, instead of sitting at the desk eating a sandwich, just go for a jog, or after work, instead of going home right away, then they can work out.
Whether there are not enough rinks, not enough accessible venues, or not enough hours in the day, stats show it's still important to remain active for the required amount of time a day. For Stu Journalism, I'm Justin Marshall.
I'm Matt Tidcombe. Soccer is one of the world's most popular sports, but why has it yet to take off in Canada?
In men's, yes. In women's, we're getting up there, but in men's, we're still quite a big lag behind. We still have the mentality of hockey instead of soccer, which is the worst thing about in here.
So how can Canada get past the hockey stigma and improve its soccer quality? Find out in the weeks ahead on The Basement Files.
The Fredericton Food Bank moves to the north side, offering more space for community kitchens and gardens, as well as more food for those in need. But will the new location be for many more difficult to access? Mark Logie has more.
This is the new location of the Fredericton Food Bank. The current location is closing up, and a new, much larger facility is opening on the north side. The 20-acre site, located at what was once Green Village, will accommodate a much larger number of people. The new location will include community gardens and greenhouses for both the organization and the families looking to grow their own food. Executive Director Elizabeth Thurber is excited about the move.
We're serving between 800 and 900 families every month, which means about 2,500 people. Well, even though we've expanded this building 3 times, it still doesn't meet our needs because we've outgrown it.
The current location is much smaller, with a cramped warehouse and limited parking space. Jim Smith has been volunteering at the food bank for 18 years. He stocks the warehouse and assembles family packages for distribution. Jim says that the larger size of the new location will help facilitate the needs of more people.
Space-wise, and it'll be better over there. People won't have to stand outside in the cold and wet in the winter. We'll have space for them to come and wait inside until we open at 10 o'clock in the morning to get the food and stuff. They won't be lined up in the street freezing and getting wet.
Rob Johnson makes use of the food bank and fears that getting to the new location will be difficult.
Yeah, well, I think that is probably going to hurt a lot of people anyways, because mainly students anyways live on on this side of the bridge, right? So, and a lot of us don't have cars, and the bus schedule is pretty messed up. So yeah, I think it's going to hurt a lot of people.
Elizabeth Thurber says the new location will address those concerns.
How we overcome that is 3 years ago we developed what is called a mobile service. A mobile service means that our food bank goes to specific locations on certain dates each and every month, and so people can call up and have their food box delivered to that location.
Since opening in 1984, the food bank has had to expand to meet the needs of Fredericton's growing population. The new facility can accommodate more volunteers while supplying more services to the area. They also plan to meet the cultural and dietary needs of people living on low income. For Stu Journalism, I'm Mark Logie.
What happens in Greece does not stay in Greece. Many Greeks now leave the country in search of a job, and some of them arrive in Canada. Greek communities across Canada welcome new members, but like Greeks in New Brunswick, they also help those back home.
Her name is Agapi, and in Greek it means love. Agapi works with her husband Dimitris in their family business, a Greek restaurant downtown Fredericton. She left the island of Crete to come to Canada 20 years ago. They have 3 children. Every few years, she goes back to Greece to see her family.
It's a shame because it's such a big history Greece has, and like the culture and everything, and it's a beautiful place. And they shouldn't destroy it like that because it's not fair.
Agapi saw firsthand what happens in Greece when she visited her homeland last summer. The summer days were cut short. And what the people knew as the Greek way of life was swept away by the financial crisis. The Greeks realized they could no longer live with soaring debt and a ruined economy after years of mismanagement. Austerity measures brought dramatic changes in everyday life in just 2 years. Protests take place every few days, often violent and destructive. Salaries and pensions are cut by half, and the middle class becomes the newly poor. 1 out of 2 young people are without a job.
Δεν μπορούσα να φανταστώ ποτέ, μα ποτέ, ότι θα βρεθώ σε αυτή τη χώρα τόσο μακριά, τόσα χιλιόμετρα μακριά από την Ελλάδα και μάλιστα χωρίς τους ηλικιωμένους γονείς μας. Ήταν πολύ δύσκολη απόφαση, όμως για μας ήταν λίγο μονόδρομος. Εάν μέναμε στην Ελλάδα αυτά τα 2 χρόνια, δεν νομίζω ότι θα μπορούσαμε να ανταποκριθούμε.
Ioanna Ratsiatou came to Fredericton a few months ago with her husband and 3 children. She teaches Greek at UNB's College of Extended Learning. Although Ioanna chose to come to Fredericton, Eleni Karavanidou was sent by the Greek government to teach modern Greek to UNB students. She's the latest Greek to arrive in Fredericton.
This wasn't the Greece I would like to live in. I would like to rediscover Greece from elsewhere. This is the real reason I'm here, to see how people are, Greek people are abroad, remember our values, and try to love this country again from a distance.
Eleni expected life to be better in Canada. So did her Greek family and friends who stayed behind.
All of my colleagues were enthusiastic about it, and they said they envy me, and if it were up to them, they would come. But their families was a reason for them not to leave the country.
Members of Greek Canadian communities say the story is familiar, as many Greeks look for job opportunities outside of Greece. The Greek community of New Brunswick meets every Sunday at the St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in St. John. The church was built in the 50s to accommodate 30 people. Now more than 70 families join the Sunday celebrations.
πάρα πολύ χαρούμενη που βρίσκομαι στον Καναδά. Είναι μια υπέροχη χώρα, μου τα έχει προσφέρει όλα. Για τα παιδιά είναι το ιδανικό μέρος, εγώ λέω πάντα.
Greeks migrated to Canada more than 40 years ago. Their children were born and raised here, sharing a Greek and Canadian identity. But ties to their families back home are still strong, and they watch closely what happens in their homeland.
You got to spend some money to create jobs. You have to create to be a creator. You cannot squeeze the people. I never heard the politicians cut their own salaries, and that's unacceptable.
The country and as well as individuals start living the European dream, like the American dream, just borrow and become big fast, and what happens, it became out of control. And so basically now they have to pay. They're going through very difficult times. We're very sad to see that the families are suffering, and you know, a lot of them they go to church to find a meal to eat. We have people that are willing to come abroad. A lot of young people that cannot find jobs. They're very qualified. They finish university. They know English, maybe more languages. And they call me. Sometimes what they do, they go to internet and find different communities and churches, and they call and say, can you help us to find a job in Canada?
In the years 2010 and 2011, the government of New Brunswick received only 3 Greek applications to come to the province. Most Greeks choose bigger cities, such as Toronto and Montreal, where large Greek communities have grown. In places such as the oldest Greek bakery in downtown Montreal, Greeks support each other. About 70,000 Greeks now live in Montreal, but even there, getting a job is not easy.
There is, of course, an interest because the unemployment is 21% and rising, but it's not very easy to migrate to Canada. You have to have a job before you migrate, and you have to, talking about Quebec, you have to speak French. We've seen a small increase in migration, but it's not like it used to be in the 50s and 60s.
Ioanna Ratsiatou knows about this firsthand in her effort to remain in Fredericton.
7 μήνες και ενώ τα χαρτιά από την πρώτη στιγμή βρίσκονταν στην ανάλογη υπηρεσία, συνεχώς αλλάζουν οι νόμοι της μετανάστευσης και πολύ συχνά μας ζητάνε επιπλέον χαρτιά και από όσο μαθαίνουμε η διαδικασία αυτή κρατάει τουλάχιστον 2 χρόνια.
Even if the dream of a new life is slim for many Greeks who look to Canada for a job and a better life, the Greek communities work together to help those back home.
Urging Greek Canadians to become Greek citizens and get a Greek passport will go across Canada and also in the States and in Australia, because having a Greek passport is actually a plus for them because they can work, travel and study anywhere in the European Union. It's not a matter only of patriotism, it's also something very practical.
Greek Canadians regaining a Greek passport is another source of income for Greece, added to donations from many Greek communities.
Right now in Canada, as well as United States and Australia, who knows, maybe other countries too, but in Canada right now they're collecting money, different communities to send to the church in Athens in order to feed the poor people. So we have to do the best we can for them.
It touched my heart when I see there 2 mayors from Italy said we're going to give us salaries to the Greek people. You know, that's do touch your heart. I think we all going to give something somewhere.
The end to the Greek crisis seems still far away, but even as some Greeks look for a new life thousands of miles away from home, they haven't forgotten the people and the country they left behind, and are doing what they can to help.
While the economic crisis has hit many areas around the world, small economic miracles still happen. St. Mary's First Nation is an example of how a community can turn from being poor to prosperous in just 10 years. Tony Peter Paul went to St. Mary's and learned more about the secrets of their success.
St. Mary's First Nation is an economic success
Behind their success stands a community of 1,700 Maliseet and 200 staff. Inside the Kachusas Commercial Center are several offices that manage one of Fredericton's largest employers. Business is booming all over the St. Mary's Reserve. The housing, roads, and infrastructure have flourished. Travelers passing through the community may find it difficult to recognize that they are in a First Nation community. Hazel Brooks has managed the smoke shop since its opening.
Okay, when I started it was in '97. I was just part-time over at the old band hall in a little green trailer. And there was only like maybe 4 employees then. And we grew now to, I think, almost 200. We moved over here. I think it was '99 we moved over to the convenience store right in this vicinity here. And it was called the convenience store. And we sold groceries, tobacco, pop, and everything like mulatto. We were here, I think, 2 years. Then they started building the supermarket. And it just grew, kept growing.
Why do you feel that it kept growing?
Good management, reliable workers. And lots of hard work.
Mike Hennessy works for the Joint Economic Development Initiative located in the Kachusas Commercial Center.
But in the context of the province, St. Mary's has a lot more going on than most First Nations in New Brunswick. I've had the opportunity to travel to probably 10 of the 15 First Nations in the province, and some of them are doing well. Some of them are still improving, but St. Mary's is kind of like the standard for everybody else in the province as far as the diversity of all of their businesses that they have, and the success rate of their businesses is very, very impressive.
But it wasn't always like this in the community. 52-year-old Candace Paul has been chief of the St. Mary's for almost a decade. She remembers what St. Mary's was like when she was a little girl.
It was a very poor community. The housing was, not well built, and so it really stuck out like a sore thumb. We're located right in the city of Fredericton, so it was very visible, the difference between the homes around us and our homes in the community.
Today, the housing at St. Mary's is comparable to the bordering city. When driving through the community, the signs of economic growth are seen everywhere. The St. Mary's Band Office and Joint Economic Development Initiative, Community Police, Peace Hills Trust Bank are just a few of the institutions who rent office space in the community. Connected to the Kachusas Commercial Center is the St. Mary's Pharmacy, the supermarket, and coffee shop. Across the parking lot is the St. Mary's Smoke Shop and Gas Bar.
Their success would be due to multiple factors. Again, they're located right here in Fredericton, so they're in an urban setting, which is a very huge advantage. It's a huge advantage to even in the Fredericton area. You've got Kingsclear, you've got Oromocto, but they're in a rural setting, whereas St. Mary's is right here in the heart of Fredericton, which is a huge plus, a huge bonus that they have. Also, the Chief Candace is very progressive on the economic development side.
But only 60 years ago, the 250 band members used to live here. This is the old Devon Reserve. Since then, they have moved the houses up to Paul Street. Chief Candace Paul remembers.
Our original community is the Devon Reserve, which is just along the water. My mother is 77 years old. She was born in a house.
Just that little spot?
Just that little spot down there, the little square. But in that little square, there was, a village, and a lot of people. And so my mom was born there, right by the water. And then in about 1960, they started building houses up here on the hill. They moved them from down the lower part and moved them up on the hill.
St. Mary's first businesses began as in-home stores that sold pop, chips, and ice cream. It wasn't long until they realized the potential of opening a store.
In the 80s, we opened a smoke shop, a convenience store out of a trailer. And it was actually in that little, across the street in the parking lot. And we outgrew that very fast, very, very fast. And then we built a smaller store across the street, a St. Mary's convenience store, that's what it was called, and outgrew that very fast. And then we have what we have today.
This is not the same for many of New Brunswick's 14 First Nations. Statistics show that the province is home to Canada's poorest Aboriginal communities. Poverty, low employment, and crime rates are high. Many of band administrations struggle with provincial and federal governments over road conditions in their communities. First Nations are under federal jurisdiction, so the provinces won't pave the roads. The federal government won't either, so many First Nations have almost no paved roads at all. The roads that are paved aren't maintained.
We have priorities here. Band members is our top priority. Then any First Nation person is our second priority. And then our third priority is anybody who actually comes in and seeks employment.
Yeah, my name's JJ from Fredericton. I started working here in September of 2011. Found it very easy to get a job here. I just come down and applied and got a call back the next day and started pretty much a week later. It's a good place to work, good employees, everyone's pretty nice here. Most of the staff are native and they're awesome guys too, most of the supervisors, and usually you start off at $10 an hour and raises every year, incentives.
I say to people all the time is that some communities are not used to good leadership. They don't know that they shouldn't settle for any less than good leadership, you know. But they haven't known it, so they don't know that that's what they deserve. So I think that, you know, if any advice is that you need to.
How do you get this good leadership? And once gotten,
how do you keep it? Yeah, that's really hard, you know, especially with the 2-year, right now with the Indian Act regulations, every 2 years, it's very difficult. And of course you have other people come in and feed them, you know, freebies or and stuff like that. But I think you just continue to try to stay on the path that, you know, that got you in there as good leadership. And I think it's kind of contagious that when people see it, you know, it feels good. And, you know, knock on wood, I've been here 8 years. Hopefully I've got more years in me. And, you know, I also believe one of the biggest things I believe, and this is on my own personal belief, is that I'm a servant, a public servant. People don't serve me, I serve my people. And I think that when you have leadership that can all think that you'll see changes in communities.
St. Mary's location in the province's capital city helps the Reserve get funding from both the city and the province. Having a good relationship helps both the Reserve and Fredericton. St. Mary's has had a sustainable leadership and a constant vision for years, and that has propelled them forward from that standpoint. Where in other communities, the EDOs are not always informed about the chief's vision. Do they want to just have a gaming center and that's their economic vision? And then a new chief comes along and is a little more progressive and wants to have a supermarket or promote tourism in the area. To deal with the different visions from the new leaders is a challenge for many EDOs. But here in St. Mary's, it's become a consistent vision over a long period of time. For Stu Journalism, I'm Tony Peter Paul.
That was all for today. I am Macedonia Kutsimbeli. Thank you very much for staying with us. Stay tuned on stutv.ca for another show next week.